Okay, we have our, next we have our on arrival questions, which is about what do you see as the vision of a culture of empathy? Because when we start our, for example, our empathy circle or our group, we say our intention is to build a culture of empathy, and we want to know, well, what does that really mean? And so we want to go through and share what our on arrival question response was. And let me bring that up. So what does the vision of a culture of empathy mean to you? And I guess I can start since I have the first one here. For me, it's an overall vision that I've been seeing more and more that it really helps to have a clear vision of where we're going. You know, instead of it's just life is about our own self-interest, having a vision gives us something to work for and that we can have as a common goal. So, and for me, the vision is really is about that everyone feels heard, everyone feels seen, and that. As I was saying here, it's about mutual listening, the mutuality of listening, constructive dialogue, empathic connection, collaboration, and creative action. And it's so Celia and I met earlier today to do some brainstorming around this. We really want to flesh this out, the whole, the narrative of what a culture of empathy is, and create a really, articulate vision. And yeah, that's just a short version of it. Varsha, you were next. And you're muted. You're muted. Varsha.
To me, culture of empathy means that everyone has a respect for one another without looking at eliminating all these discriminatory elements like race, gender, class, color, nationality. Just have respect for one another, because I don't see any difference between one human or the other, because to me emotions, feelings matters the most, and that's common between all humans. So that's why I think every human deserves to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I would like to see a change or being culture would be empathy. Like every human should have empathy for one another. It means everyone should be heard and seen equally.
Mm-hmm. So if I just reflect it, so you're saying that everyone should have respect, so it's mutual respect, and there seems to be an aspect of equality, seeing the common humanity and the equality between everyone. It's kind of what I was hearing behind that too.
Yes, because every human being is affected by emotions, emotions, feelings. That's where the conflict arises. If you hurt somebody, then the conflict arises. Another thing is lack of empathy. That's where that's how conflict arises. All these emotional trauma, disturbances. It's all respect and empathy. Lack of respect and empathy. So that should be there.
Yeah. So it's that aspect of that we all have these common feelings or common, yes. And they be able to see that those common feelings and that everyone should be seen and heard, kind of mutually seen and heard. Again, yes. That relationality.
Yeah.
Is there more? Do you feel?
I've been observing and contemplating and reflecting, why people react and all. I've seen the craving for power. I'm superior to you, you are inferior to me, all that, and all these things happen because I think people lack empathy and people lack respect for one another. Because of that, people crave for power. Basically, I don't think so. Power is really required,
So it's sort of like, what is the blocks to empathy? And one of the blocks to a culture of empathy is people struggling for power and feeling superior over others. So that creates this sort of a block to a culture of empathy.
Yes, and also I think people crave for power because that is one of the form that it takes when they are not being heard or seen. Because power is like, they want to be seen, they want to be heard. So I think when people feel that they are not being heard or seen, then they show it through power.
Okay, so if we had a culture of empathy where everyone was seen and heard, they wouldn't have to try to grab for power and block empathy.
Yes.
And so that, okay. Then thanks. Bill, do you want to?
Thank you.
Well, I agree with, what's been said before. In my comment, I didn't really specifically say what those values are, but certainly being heard and feeling that you're respected. And but I talked about, deciding on what are some of those, 4 or 5 themes about that. We got 2 or 3, whatever it is. And then, fleshing those out. They should be broad enough and so that we can, apply them to situations. Well, was this value of empathy then, addressed in this situation? So I think we're at the time of sort of, like you said, defining explicitly what it is, at least the values, and then moving forward. So that's something that people can then, gather around.
Okay, so I'll just reflect. So I'll be offering some reflections here. So what I'm hearing there is that a culture of empathy is made up of, different core values, and you're looking at sort of articulating those core values and kind of defining those. Is that?
Yes, it is. Only except that those core values are not chiseled in stone. There has to be some flexibility. It's like when the core value gets in the way of real empathy in the moment, then it's time to kind of, take another look at it. So, but I think those core values then make it understandable and give organizing principles for people.
So if we list the core values of a culture of empathy, it creates these principles, kind of an organizing principles, but don't be too rigid about that where it kind of blocks. If you get rigid, this is what it means. Yeah. We get all rigid about it, that kind of blocks, that rigidity would block a culture of empathy.
Great. No, that's great. Thank you, Edwin. I really feel heard. Thank you.
Okay. Then we have Bob, and since he's not here, I'll just read what he said. He said, if each of us does the challenging and worthwhile work of strengthening our self-connected centeredness and receiving the gift of other-centeredness, we will delight in serving by listening. We will respect the dignity of each person. So again, there's that respect. And we will be empowered to look for solutions based not on what's in it for me, but what's in it for us. So what I'm hearing there, it's kind of moving. A culture of empathy is not only a self-centeredness, but it's, he's saying, an other-centeredness, as well as that the respect came up again, and the instead of just looking what's in it for me, it's looking for what's in it for the community and for us there. So, okay, that was Bob's. And Peter, you want to share yours?
Yeah. For me, I kind of wrote down how I'm not sure that I have a vision of what a culture of empathy looks like for me yet. I'm just kind of sitting with the fact that this is kind of, I know what an individual practice of empathy, and even maybe, if I look at it micro, meso, macro, I know what a meso, like a family level, empathetic family looks like. But an entire culture that focuses on empathy, that's a big shift. And the truth is that even myself, noticing how much my politics have gone back and forth in the past few years, I'm realizing how epic of a shift it would look like in a world, and how much and how little would change through that culture of empathy. Like, would things really look different, or would it just look slower or quicker? Or I don't know. I really don't know what would look different. I'd like to imagine it, but it really, I'm kind of, I just kind of want to watch and see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe we'll get a little bit more of it, you know, and
Okay,
we'll see what happens.
so what I'm hearing there is that you're not sure what a real whole culture of empathy would look like. You can sense it in yourself, like as a individual empathy. You can imagine it or see it in the family, but scaling it up to this whole level of the whole culture, it's like you just have to kind of wait and see to kind of imagine what that is like, or kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm realizing, hearing you feed it back to me, it's kind of like there are situations every day that I see a lot of empathy happening, and there are situations that I don't. So I'm just curious, like, how, like, you know, what would it look like if we had more of that empathy?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, acknowledging that I see a lot of it. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Staten Island, like I live on Staten Island. We have a reputation for being these tough guys, but I see kindness every day. You know, particularly in my work. You know, I unexpected, just random people coming up and being nice to my clients or being nice to me even in situations. So it's interesting, you know, it's just interesting to see it and think about it.
Yeah, so you're seeing just in your daily life as you move through Staten Island, you see the manifestation of empathy between people. So there's quite a bit of empathy in society, and it sounds like you sort of just acknowledge that, and then you also see some lack of empathy too. So you're kind of aware. Is there more?
No, I feel heard. Thank you.
Varsha, like you had something pressing?
Yes. I mean, Peter was saying, I think the past sessions I said,
before we go into, maybe we have a discussion on other people's, but just to get Celia's, have her share, and then we can come back to you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Just so we have everyone.
For me, it can be short. All of the above, what you guys all said. The question, what does it mean to me? That really touched deep, like it meant the world to me. It's all that I work for so many years, and I aim for in working with the groups that I work with. And but how would it look like? It would really look like a total different world. You know, we would not have that overpowering in businesses and schools, and it should, if really that culture totally would soak in, we would have that utopia of peace. And I still go for it. It may no, I think I'm going to be 125, so I have quite some time. But other than that, the moment we can do it already in our little circle and be the person yourself who you want to encounter, you know, then that alone would be fabulous. And then it goes from one to the other. And like I said, I mentioned to Edwin and in the other group that that once you are taught this at a young age, once you have seen it, it will come back. And I've seen proof in my own family with that. So that is really so nice to see that if children are really heard, and if it starts really from baby on, you know, that the attachment parenting and all that kind of good stuff, but then also the lovers amongst each other, the parents, and then if then the other people that are involved in that family could join in, then that was the road I went. But now I'm gonna set up an empathy tent, so address it a little more from the outside.
Okay, well, what I'm hearing there is what I'm hearing is that you're imagining a culture of empathy where the whole society is empathic, and it's just like this beautiful, almost like a beautiful vision. It's like how different everything would be, and that you also see that we can start in small groups to have a culture of empathy, as well as maybe with families. And with families, if we bring those empathic empathic way of being or empathy skills in, that will kind of move with the children through their lives and have an impact there. So, yeah, is that it? Or?
Yes, I feel it. Thank you.
Okay. Is there more, or you feel?
No. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Marsha, back to you.
I just want to quickly ask, my husband is at home and he usually likes to attend my class, but I don't allow him. But today he's at home. Can he be here in the room for some time, for half an hour?
Yeah, it's fine with me. Sure. Yeah.
So you get to see
He wants to listen in. Does he want to participate?
Yes, I think you can tell him what to do.
You might have to tell him what to do.
No overpowering.
No power over. Or maybe. So that is the initial question of, what does that mean to us? And we would like to do some just brainstorming or even some visioning dialogue. So maybe I created a Facebook event for having some vision, kind of envisioning discussions. And so we can maybe do that in a couple of weeks, or we just get a group together, maybe from the other groups as well, and just maybe use empathic listening, what our vision is for a culture of empathy, write down what everyone says and write up some sort of a report or something. So that is that. I'm going to